today we are going to focus on another opportunity skill, which is decision making. Decision making is one of the skill sets that is required for you to establish yourself as an effective leader, as a transformative leader, as a great leader, as a true leader. So it's important that we look at this as we wrap up our conversation on opportunities. So, how can you develop effective decision making skill for you to be able to achieve your goals and achieve success this year? And we'll start by looking at the meaning of decision making. I'm sure we are all aware that life is a choice. You live on a daily basis by making choices. And the process of you making choices is what we call decision making. You choose on your own terms what to live by and what to do, what not to do, right? So when you engage in life in making choices, that is a concept of decision making. And this is a very, very important process that you need to go through on this journey if at all you are going to grow in your personal lives and if you are going to grow in your professional pursuit. The process involves you making what we call best logical conclusions. I mean, for you to achieve the point of making a choice, you will say that you actually reach a logical conclusion. So that when you make a choice, you will not be wondering that, oh, what did I, just like if you are going to exchange vows on the altar in tying the knot with someone, right? Before you make those commitments and, you know, make those vow statements, right? You want to think. That's what I mean by logical. You have to reason. You have to think deep before you say I do, so that you don't end up saying, what did I do? So the process of you thinking in order for you to be able to reach a logical conclusion, which now becomes your choice, is what we talk about decision making. And you see that it's a process. So you don't just jump irrationally and just conclude that this is my choice. You go through a process. So we're going to examine that process. That's why we call it making, decision making, before you decide or before you reach the point whereby you make up your mind on a choice, or you do selection before you select, and when you select and what you've selected. So all of these things are what this skill is all about. And it is very, very essential in achieving success because it enhances your effectiveness as a leader. It enhances your effectiveness as a leader. When you see a good leader, one of the characteristics that you see attributed to that leader is the consistency of how the person make good choices, right? Strong choices. Just imagine if the president of a nation makes a wrong choice, it's going to affect a lot of people. Just like when Tinubu came, our own president here in Nigeria, and on the day of inauguration, you just make a declaration: subsidy gone. 2 words: subsidy gone. 2 words. That's a decision. Either it's personal or he made the decision, of course, with the authority vested on him as the commander in chief and the president presiding over all the affairs of this nation. In that capacity, in that role, in that office, he made that decision. And that's resulted into several things which are still being managed in the economy up to now, right? So that is how powerful decision is. So it can enhance the performance. It can make or mar the performance of a leader. And that's what I mean by effectiveness. How effective a leader would be in his leadership role can be determined or can be measured based on the consistency of the decision or choices the leader makes. So this is how important this is to you. Because as you're emerging as a leader, as you are developing yourself, as you are building your capacity in your profession or your career, you also need to acquire that skill in making good decisions. And you can really see that life will be enjoyable and life will be okay for you. So what are the steps you need to take in making decision, knowing that this is very, very important? The first step is decision is targeted towards solving problems. So there is no other way to start the process of making decision or selecting a choice, right? By you understanding exactly what that problem is all about. For instance, our president would just say subsidy gone. The first question, someone like me who understand how important it is for a leader to make a conclusive, a logical conclusion on a matter or a scenario or a situation on a case or a project, is to ask, does this leader who is making this decision abruptly or conclusively, does the leader understand the problem? Okay, and what was the problem, or what's the problem we are dealing with? The problem of what's it called now? The production and availability of fuel, okay, petrol. So, which determines majorly most of the things that are play in our economy as a nation. So, imagine a very important problem or a very important case like petrol is pivoted, our economy is pivoted on it to the point that, if possible, the air we breathe, if it's to be monetized, if it's to be placed on monetary value, the cost at which we buy petrol will be largely influenced. I mean, the cost of petrol will largely influence it, right? So that is how important. So sometimes you need to evaluate the nature of a problem to start with before you position yourself on how you want to take decisions on things. So, meaning that if, as a leader, if you don't understand a problem in depth, if you don't have a clear understanding of what the problem is, you don't stand a chance to make good decision over the problem in terms of solution. So I will ideally say to any leader that you don't make, abrupt conclusion when it comes to decision making. When you want to decide on a matter, you have to give it a test of time. But we are going to see there are some situations, there are some scenarios, there are some emergencies, there are some things that has to do with high risks that will require you to make quick decision. So how do you undo situations or scenarios when they are played that you need to make quick decision? Then the other thing, after you trying to understand what the problem is for you to gather data. You need to gather information. Okay, you need information, because sometimes even in the approach of trying to understand the problem, you may not understand deeply, fully. But by the time you step into the second phase, which is now you gathering information, because you have paucity of information over the matter, so you will know that that's the more reason why you cannot just take a quick decision. You need to give it more time when you make investigation. And then, based on the collected data, you can now make some verifiable, logical conclusion on decision. And one thing about information is so valuable in this generation. Data is so valuable in this generation because it gives deeper insight into what problems are. If you want to know what the problems are about the petroleum industry, you need to look at the data, the indices in the past few years. So what I usually also advise leaders is, if you are trying to use data, verifiable data, as the basis of your decision making, you need to ensure that you don't just consider only one stream of data. Make sure you have comparative data, systematic data. Those are the things. And what I mean by that is, you have maybe data spread over a minimum of 3 years. Okay, so you have data that is spread over a minimum of 3 years, not just data within a year, a cycle. You have it over 2, 3 cycles. That will give you a broader perspective to what the problem is, because data changes over a period of time. like what we used to have as the data about the same problem 2 years ago might be the different data collected this year on the same problem, because the variables might have changed, conditions might have changed. I mean, several things will have changed as long as it's not the same data on the same problem. So by the time you now look at the way you will analyze the data, it will give you a more definite, right, a more precise judgment in order for you to be able to take informed decisions. So data helped you. That's why they call it information gathering. That helps you to make informed decision. So just making decision has to be from the point of verification that whatever you have decided on, you can always verify it to be adjudged to be true. Okay, you don't want to make decision based on implied truth, which is not truth, or what you opinionated, what you perceive to be truth, which if you dig deeper and you verify may not appear to be truth in nature. So this is the reason why you need to use information and data to validate whatever steps you want to take towards making the decision, because truth is absolute and truth does not change. So you need to explore, you need to evaluate, you need to discover to know exactly the extent by which you want to establish this truth. Okay. Um, Sorry, can someone help to drop the link for Comfort in the group? She's trying to join. I guess she's not able to get the link from the email communication that was sent. So someone can kindly share that so that I'm not distracted. I just saw the message from the WhatsApp group. Okay, so the next step is now for you to look at alternatives. Again, I mean, I want you to follow this process, because many times when you see someone make a decision, we don't see all of this process that they've gone through. And if decisions were made without going through this process, is a reason why people fail in leadership. Okay. For you to decide, for you to conclusively decide, you need to consider alternatives. Could there be any other possible way for you to solve the problem? Because, like I mentioned to you pretty much in the first week, I told you there is never no one way that enter into a market. In fact, we even did a quick interrogation on that to be sure that whether that is true or not. And I'm very, very happy the way we creatively explain the different means or ways by which people can get into a market. Tell us that it's not just only one way, right? So the same way, there is never one solution to a problem. There are myriads, there are different solutions that can be uh, uh, um, that can be developed or that can be discovered in solving a problem, because decision making is the process by which you solve a problem. Okay, so you must have put all these possible or alternative solutions on the table before you decide on the best solution. So usually your decision or your choice is supposed to be the best among alternatives, among options. Okay, so the best, okay, the best is what you should now resolve to be your decision or your choice. So don't forget, you need to always explore alternatives. Then the fourth step is for you to weigh the pros and the cons. You need to understand the uh, um, what the opportunities and threats associated with this decision that you think is the best alternative or is the best choice to be taken, because every solution in itself has inherent problems associated with it. The best solution is usually the one that has the least problem. I'm going to repeat this statement and I want you to listen carefully, because this will help you a lot as a leader. The best solution, every problem has inherent in it problems associated. So the best solution is usually the one that has the least problem associated with it. For instance, look at what happened when the president says subsidy gone. He might think in his wildest imagination that that's the best solution, right? But look at the associated problem with removal of subsidy. without considering alternatives, without weighing the pros and cons, right? Before you make the decision. Because if you have actually weighed the pros and cons, that means you will have established what risk is associated. In case the risk happen, you will have planned on how you want to mitigate the risk adequately. Because some risk will happen if not properly defined and identified as a major risk. If it happens and it becomes a high risk, it can result into even catastrophe. It can result into death. It can result into apocalypse, as it were, right? So imagine if a president who has access to detonate uh, um, what's it called now, atomic bomb or missiles and all of that, and sees a threat or a problem and wants to solve it, and all of a sudden just go ahead and press or enter the code for the detonation of an atomic bomb or a missile, or I mean, it's going to be a serious problem. It's going to cause high level catastrophe or devastation. So you want to avoid all these things. So I want you to always picture every decision you make in that case, in that sense. There are many lives that can be lost if care is not taken, if you have made the wrong decision. And many times it might even affect people who are directly related to you. So you might not even get to know pretty much earlier until when the consequences begin to showcase or show up. So you need to be careful by ensuring that you dutifully go through this process. And these things happen almost at the tip of the finger. Happens just with the speed of time. So it's not like we are dogmatically say, oh, it takes 1 day or 2 days or 10 days or 1 month. No, it depends on the speed. There's something I'm still going to talk to you about decision velocity, right? So it depends on the speed at which you move in the direction of solving the problem, right? If the problem is so germane that requires immediate solution, you will still go through this at a high velocity, right? The process by which you gather information, the way by which you set up structure to, I mean, you don't need to wait until when problem surfaces before you know that you need to have adequate uh, 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 um, data management system. And this is one of the things that we lack in Nigeria. We don't have data. Our processes, our governance system is not data driven, right? It's not data driven. Even when we collect data, we don't know the importance and the import for us to analyze and store and keep, because all of these things are sensitive to us solving problems, whatever kind of problem you want to talk about. So it's important that you proactively put this structure in place. So if you see an effective leader, the first set of things that the leader would do is to put structure in place, structure that talks about the system of the governance, of which data, it has to be a data-driven governance system where they collect data and then store the data and archive them in such a way that when you want to retrieve relevant data, you can easily access them for insight purpose and also for analysis purpose in order for you to be able to facilitate the process by which you take decision. So I've talked about that. So once you have been able to go through these four steps, then you can now make your decision. And here is you choosing the best solution out of the alternatives, which are empirical, which are valid, they are verifiable. You see, when someone like a leader like Peter Obi, I just want to use him as an example because this is someone we can take in contemporary terms. When Peter Obi gives an insight into solving a problem, and he gives his statistics and all of that, he always have this way of telling people who are doubting the veracity, who are doubting the logical essence of his proposition, right, that they should go and verify. And up to now, he has said this repeatedly. Up to now, nobody has been able to come back with a contrary opinion or with something more superior, or even to invalidate whatever it is. So such a leader, people want to listen to him. Such a leader, a serious country will want to give attention, to even see, because this is what exactly leadership is all about. Put sentiment, put emotions aside. This is exactly what leadership means, right? You want to interrogate, you want to engage meaningfully with a person, because you can see a similitude of the concept of leadership, effective leadership in that kind of a practice. Then decision making does not stop in you just making a choice, right? You have to follow it through to the point of implementation. Because our goal in decision making is for us to succeed, is for us to achieve a goal, is for us to fulfill a purpose, right? So you don't just take the decision and you walk away and you just like, decision will work out itself. No. And that's where most leaders don't emerge as effective leaders. They don't emerge as true leaders or great leaders, because once they make the decision, they just go to sleep. No, you take a step further by engaging all necessary strategy for implementation. This is where you put your choice. This is where you put the decision that you have accepted out of all the alternatives into action. You practicalize it, you put it to test. And like I mentioned, the greatest form of testing any element in life, in nature, has to do with time. Time will tell if you actually made the right decision. Just like what we're having in Nigeria at the moment. Almost 2 years ago, someone said subsidy gone. Until now, 2 years after, our economy has never remained the same. We are still kind of like the level of what the dundrum that it had thrown everybody into. People has not been able to recover and all of that. And life has never remained the same, right? So these are the things that would happen. And the purpose of you implementing is for you to also give room for continuous improvement. If I were to be the president who took that decision almost 2 years ago, over 2 years ago, by now, or even in the past 1 year, because you should have, which is now the seventh step, you should have this process of evaluation, of monitoring and controlling the impact of the decision. You should have it in place in order for you to optimize the kind of results you want to get, right? So you see that as simple as someone just waking up early in the morning and say, this is what I want to do, as simple as it is, it has its own impact. It has a way of making or mind your day. So you rather want to look at the process as you are moving. You should, at every point in time, either using Pomodoro technique in how you engage and carry out your work in a smaller chunk. You want to ensure that you monitor the performance, you monitor the level at which you execute or implement those decisions you made for your day, so that if there's going to be any negative impact, you can quickly adjust, you can quickly, retract on your decision. I mean, that's where trust and integrity comes in. It is high trust, and it is one of the highest level of integrity exhibition, or exhibiting your integrity. When a leader has made the wrong choice and shows up in the public and retract that decision, or hone the decision that, oh, I decided to do this, I realize I'm wrong, and then we're going to retrace back a step and then begin to build on how to make necessary adjustments in order, because the goal is to succeed. But what we've usually had in this case is, even when a decision has failed in terms of the level of results we get or the outcome we see, because our leaders fail to evaluate, then you begin to now see a continuous trend of negative impact. Whereas they now even begin to even expose themselves in showing that they don't have empathy, in showing that they don't give a damn, in showing that all they are concerned about is their own self-driven interest. So it shows exactly what they are up to in position of leadership. So I'm saying this so that either you are a leader at a high level or at a low level, whichever level of governance system you're engaging in as a leader, these are part of things that you need to put into practice for you to emerge as an effective leader. Because as small as uh, um, even a small community of a small team of people that you're leading in your organization, your business, in any strata of life, right? These are the things that you need to do. And that is why I tell you for free. When you see an effective leader who is doing so well at the local level, who is doing so well managing a small thing, such leader has the capacity to manage a whole nation. So nobody should come and tell me that, oh, this one has not been tested with a bigger, even it's scriptural. I mean, it's a principle in the Bible. It said, to whom much, to whom little is given and is faithful in little things, much will be committed to him. You are given little thing, a coin for you to manage and become productive and successful with it. You're going to be given much more, because you have a pattern of success. You have a pattern of making good decisions. And that is what is required to emerge as a great leader, not because you have controlled. What's even the purpose of someone who is controlling large empire and it keeps failing over decision making, right? And you still want to commit greater things to the person. No, it's quite predictable what the person is going to achieve or what's going to be the outcome, because it's still going to be failure as usual. So when you're telling people from this point of understanding that this set of leaders you are selecting or you are choosing, this is the pattern, right? This is the best you can get. People are always like sentimental. And at the end of the day, time tells, right? And shows that one is actually true, because these are verifiable data. So you need to go through this step in order for you to be able to. And this also applies to even the way you make decisions in your personal life. So this is not just because you are a leader, because don't forget, leadership starts from within, from you. You leading yourself before you lead other people. If you're unable to make good decisions for your own life, making good choices for your own life, it will be very difficult for you to make good decisions on behalf of other people when you are being invested and entrusted with authority. And this is what happens to many people. When I say failed leaders, I know that it's because they have failed in governing their life adequately. Okay. So how do we engage in evaluation? There are several techniques, because this is very, very more important than even all other steps, right? You are implementing. So how do you commit yourself so that you don't go to sleep on your oasis, rest on your oasis and think all is going to be well? So how are you going to engage to evaluate consistently and check? Maybe you want to even make it a strategic plan, right? You want to make it a strategic plan on how you want to monitor and evaluate on a consistent basis the performance of your decision, so that you can continually review it for improvement. If you have said subsidy gone, and you now see the impact of subsidy having a large impact beyond what you even envisaged, right? Because sometimes you make decisions, you never know what comes out of it. But immediately you start seeing the result or part of what is showcasing, if you are evaluating it, then you can now decide, oh, okay, so let me retract based on this outcome, so that we can then manage the success. We can manage how we are going to get the desirable outcome, right? Because whatever it is, you should not be so proud, you should not be so elevated that you cannot humble yourself to admit when you're wrong in terms of making wrong decision, because that is a true exhibition of wisdom. A wise leader is someone who has made the wrong decision and then retract on it and then appropriate itself. I mean, himself or herself. Okay. So the process of evaluation and committing to monitoring and control is one of the things that will enable you to be able to adjudge your decision at every point in time. So what are the different types of decision making skill that you find out there? The common one is the logical reasoning that I talked about, right? You don't want to make abrupt conclusion on matters, or in terms of what kind of solution you want to deploy. You want to base your decision or choices on facts and figures, like Peter Obi, go and verify. And this is just a systematic, and this thing is not like you have to take it through a rigorous process, as it were, except if the problem is a complex problem. As simple as you want to decide on what to eat, right? You have to base it on facts. You have to base it on logic. You have to base it on eye reasoning, by simply determining whether this type of food is something that your body really needs. I mean, these are some of the rational thinking that will go deep inside of you before you just decide, okay, I'm going to eat this. Not because everybody's eating. Sometimes you go to a party or you're in a public space and they serve buffet. You see different kinds of food, and they are just telling me, pick me, pick me, pick me, pick me. Maybe some you have even been daydreaming, you have been salivating for a long time, and that appetite just aroused within you that, oh, this is the food I've been looking for, and here you see it free of charge. You know, you need to make informed decision by looking at, process of logical reasoning. If you hit this at that point in time, what effect is it going to have on you? Okay, maybe you've even gotten a doctor's report that says you should not take a particular kind of food or type of food. I mean, so this is what logical. So you don't just make irrational reasoning. I mean, irrational decision. You don't make illogical decision, which many times is influenced by emotions, right? You don't need to be emotional or sentimental. You need to be rational. You need to be logical in order for you to be able to hold up or hone up to your decisions when it's been taken. Then the second one has to do with intuitive reasoning. Okay, you decide based on intuition, and intuition sometimes comes as a reflex action. You just have this gut within you. You just have this feeling. You just have this inclination, kind of like maybe you've seen a pattern, or you've seen some kind of revelation, or you've seen some kind of deja vu, or you've seen some kind of apparition, or you just have this insight that comes from past experiences, right? You just want to take intuitive reasoning based on that. I mean, there is no crime in it, but you need to be rest assured that what is fueling or the force behind your intuition is not sentiment, is not emotions. I keep mentioning this because when you think you have high EQ, unfortunately, what is being exhibited is medium or low EQ. You can fall victim of thinking that you're actually basing your decision on facts, or you're basing your decision on your guts or your instincts. But many a times it's just underlining effect of your weak emotional intelligence, or your poor emotional intelligence. So you have to be very, very, very careful. And that's why we've discussed about the importance of you growing and increasing the level of your emotional intelligence, so that you are able to govern your emotions, and your emotions is not overpowering or is not subduing your sensitivity, is not subduing your discernment, is not subduing your logical reasoning, your systematic way of thinking, your critical thinking is not subduing them, right? Look at what normally happens during our elections. People uh, uh, um, people usually incite emotions in people by giving them money. You can imagine. And sometimes they even use poverty as a weapon to incite emotions. Sometimes they use religion as a weapon to incite emotions and sentiments. Sometimes they use cultural inclinations, they use cultural affiliations or social. I mean, all of these things. And politicians are very good with all these things because they know how to play on human emotions. It's more like when you're going into politics, you just have to go for emotional intelligence course and know how to control people's emotions for your own gain. So you need to have a command of yourself. And that's why as a leader, it is an aberration, it is poor judgment for you to take undue advantage of people's emotion, you know. So as a governor emotion, you have to also help people with the way they calibrate their emotions. Then the third one talks about collaboration. Okay, collaboration. And usually you find these at play in certain types of leadership style. If you are using democratic leadership style, or you are using laissez-faire, or you are using uh, um, um, you are using a leadership style that has to do with transformative leadership style, or you are using a negotiative leadership style. All of these involve parties, involve the followers, involve the people, your team members. So you need to take a concession, I mean, a consensus within them. If you are hearing people saying, oh, we need referendum, in order for us to be able to decide on which path of the governance alternative that we want to go, whether we are going to go with the executive decision, or we want to take the popular decision opinion of the people, right? So this is what collaborative decision-making process implies. So people are involved in the process of is democracy. Decision-taking making process is democratized. Okay, is not vested in the leader alone, but leader also carry other people. They are all on the same page, right? In order for them to be able to make decisions. And this is very important because it becomes a bedrock, it becomes a strong foundation for you to build the people as well in becoming leaders. Then the final one has to do with data. I've spoken about this. It's very important that you have empirical evidence. You have, I mean, this builds up evidential experience for people. And when you have empirical evidence in making choices, then it becomes a consistent pattern by which you can choose and make choices in solving problem. For instance, if you want to solve economic problem of Nigeria, you need to have economic data. If you don't have economic data, it becomes a problem. So imagine if you have used economic data 2 years ago in coming up with a policy or making a decision on what needs to be done in the executive arm of the government, right? Chances are that after 2 years, you can revalidate those data and then continually improve on the performance of your decision. So every 2 years, you can give yourself the commitment that you are going back into the market to go and collect new data and then revalidate the data. If things have changed, maybe it has increased in value or it has reduced in value, then you can know how to adjust and continue to do what we call structural adjustment on your decisions. So this is how important it is for you to have data driven. So if you ask me, all of these are part of what you're going to engage in when you are making decisions. And it's simply because of the type of, or is sensitive to the type of leadership style that plays or that is being selected by the leader to make use of. As I'm rounding up, we need to examine the type of skills that are required for you to make decisions. We need to look at, I have about 6, but let me just quickly narrow down to these 3 first. The first one has to do with critical thinking. By now, you see that I've been emphasizing on this. Critical thinking, your creative thinking is very, very important. You need to be very, very analytical. You need to be very logical. If you're going to be a good leader, even if your personality type, as you have analyzed and assessed yourself before now, does not show any trait that you have critical thinking, that means that is part of the goal you should set for yourself this year, right? For you to develop critical thinking skill. And there are several activities, there are several ways by which you can pursue this goal in order for you to be able to emerge as someone who has critical thinking skill, right? So make sure you understand biases, know where emotions are playing and where logic is put forward before emotions. Because when you base your judgments on biases, you will always have a pullback. A pushback. So you need to avoid that as a leader. Then the second one is a problem solving skill. I call this thing wicked problem solving skills, WPS, wicked problem solving skills. It's very, very important that you don't have to wait until when problem knock on the door. You have to be a problem seeker because you're a problem solver. Every problem solver is a problem seeker. As you are moving on a daily basis, you are looking at elements in life, you are looking at things, you are engaging with people, you will always discover problems. And the problems you are wired by purpose to solve are the ones that will so much strike a chord in your passion. And this is what I mean. Life is full of problems and there will always be challenges, right? There will always be challenges. Ever since the foundation of this earth was laid, there has always been one problem or the other that people are solving. And it seems as if it's never going to be enough, right? So the ones that will make sense to you are the ones that align strictly with your purpose. And that's what you need to focus on. Meaning that you cannot solve every problem in this world. You can't solve even human beings, you can't solve all human problems. The earlier, the better you realize this, the more you begin to define the pathway of peace and relevance for yourself. So develop part of what you're going to gain by the time you develop this wicked problem solving skill is you'll be able to have focus on exactly what you are meant to solve as a problem, the problem you are meant to solve based on your personality type, your skills, your value system, and that which aligns strictly with your purpose. Okay. And you want to see to the end, not that you are scratching on the surface, you are solving it and making sure that in your lifetime, you are attributed to the fact that you solved this problem, that you are indeed an overcomer, and this challenge is never going to rise again, right? As long as you're alive. So that is exactly what it means to have a problem-solving skills. Then you, of course, have the emotional intelligence skill. I'm not going to gloss over this. I'm not going to say anything because we dealt with this in one of the sessions. I mean, you can have other skills, other important skill sets like the time management that we talked about, effective communication skills, and of course, risk management skill, because risk, as you are doing the evaluation post pre-implementation and post-implementation of your choices. You begin to see the potential of likelihood of, threats and opportunities. And this is where decision-making process can enable you to seize opportunity. So risk management skill is a very, very important skill that you need to acquire. So you need to know how to identify risk, how to analyze, how to identify risk. That's the first step. How to analyze risk, how to plan for risk, how to mitigate risk, how to document. So all of these things are part of what risk management skill entails. So you need to know how to do this. And there are tools, there are techniques that you can use in identifying risk, in analyzing risk, in planning to mitigate risk, and the different types of risk mitigation techniques and all of that, or stages of risk mitigation. Okay, so we need to also evaluate certain pitfalls, what we call the, what's it called now? The challenges that you're going to face when you are making decisions. The challenges, some of them I've mentioned them, like the bias, the emotional challenge. Some of these things are part of what you can shy away from, or even the issue of not having data, like we have in this country, where data is almost half cent. Everywhere you turn to trying to solve problem, you can't find data. I remember when I was pushing some ideas in green building, when I started practicing green building, I joined Green Building Council Nigeria. The first thing I noticed was like most of the data we are using to certify buildings as a green building in Nigeria are data, even the one that is the easiest tool to use in rating building to be green, right? As the World Bank Edge program, most of the data are not local data. They're data that they adopted from foreign data, like maybe in India or in South Africa and other part of Africa, right? So it's just now that we're trying to develop a robust data system, right? And without data, you can't drive processes. Without data, you can't drive meaningful decision process. So data is so you will definitely face the challenge trying to solve a problem, but this should not be uh, um, an hindrance, because there's a difference between limitation and an hindrance. Hindrance or obstacle will make it impossible for you to progress, while limitation, you will progress, but it might not be at the velocity, at the rate by which you want to progress. So it's just going to limit the scope of your impact. It's going to limit the extent at which you are going to achieve results. So these are things that you need to actually deal with, right? And begin to form some kind of thought on how you want to bridge the gap. Then you also have the paralysis of analysis, meaning that many people take too much time before they take action. You spend all the time analyzing without planning on when you will execute. Don't forget, that's why I mentioned the sixth step that you need to take in making decision making as you implementing. It's not just enough for you to decide, right? You need to plan as you're analyzing using any of the techniques on data management system, data analysis, for you to analyze whatever decision you are making, then plan to implement. If you are not implementing, then you have actually put yourself in a form of paralysis, because you can't move and you can achieve success. So you don't want to have goal paralysis, right? You don't want to have your purpose paralysis. So these are part of the things that you need to kind of like deal with. Then we also have the group think. And this because you are actually engaging the group in making decision. That's what I mentioned when we're talking about collaborative here, right? So you need to be careful on how you manage conflict within the team. Imagine when you want to decide together with your team, or you want to decide together, maybe during referendum, how are you going to manage all the sentiment that will come to bear? How are you going to manage all the differences? So it requires a high level intelligence in terms of emotional intelligence for you to be able to organize and deal with potential conflict that may ensue. And you be sure that conflict is not going to degenerate into battle or war. You've seen people right from referendum points, they move into internal battles or what we call civil war, right? God forbid that will happen on a project or any area where you are leading, right? So you need to be careful of this so that it doesn't generate, because that's what happens when you have conflict ensued within a group or set of people. So, what are the strategies? I'm going to end with this, showing us some strategies that you can take in improving on your process. Perhaps you have been failing in the time past in how you make decisions, or you discover you have, based on all the personality assessment that you've taken on yourself, you discover that you don't have good consistency. You don't have consistency in the way you make decision. Your decision making, the quality of your decision making has not been very consistent. The outcome has not been always consistent. There are things you can do, there are strategies you can employ, for you to be able to uh, ensure consistency in making good decisions. The first one is for you to use tools and techniques. You need to use technology for you to analyze data. Don't forget, it's important you collect data. It's because that you make logical thinking. You can use certain tools. You can use some techniques or what we call frameworks for you to be able to analyze your data effectively. You have your SWOT analysis. You've done that on yourself. You can make it on any decision as well. That's how important SWOT analysis is. You know what is the strength, the weakness, the opportunity, and threat associated with that particular solution, right? Then you can also do cost benefit analysis. This is in cost management. You want to know how much it's going to cost you, right? If the government has, if Tinubu had done a CBA on that decision he took before making that decision, subsidy gone, he will have known that the cost is going to be unbearable in the long run, even if it's going to be beneficial. But in the short run, in the short, medium term, the cost is going to be unbearable, and it can heap up so much emotions and sentiments in the heart of people that will make him become a very bad leader or a terrible leader in the sand of time. So these are part of the things that you can do. The same, you can also use decision tree. Decision tree is a process whereby you compare several alternatives, right? You know, we're talking about that the other time, that you have to compare several other alternatives or options. So with decision tree, you can look at the pattern at which you're making decision against other alternatives. Then the second strategy is for you to seek for diverse perspective. Don't be so opinionated about your own view. There are some people whose personality type are like this. They are just so fixated on their own view, not knowing that the world has moved away from their perspective. The world still up to now is spherical. The world is not even circular. The world is not triangular. It's not rectangular. The world is not linear. The world is spherical, meaning that the world has different faces that appears. As we're talking, there are some people who are on the 7 hours way behind us. Some are even 14 hours ahead of us, right? So the world has, there are diverse perspectives, there are diverse opinions. And even in law, when you are making a submission or you are making a choice, they will say, according to, in my own opinion, or subject to my own opinion, right? So you can't just be so fixed on your own opinion, because the level of your success will never outgrow your opinion or your view or what you see. But there's a realm that is higher and farther beyond that which you can see, because where the limitation of your own sight is might be where the strength and the beginning of someone else's sight begins from. So you need to, collaborate. You need to ensure that you allow other perspective to come to bear before you make your decision. How much I wish that a town hall meeting or a public opinion was sought after before such huge decision was made, which has a huge impact, or which necessarily would add a huge impact on the populace, right? They would have sought for maybe expert judgment or subject matter expert opinion and all of that before they just decide subsidy gone, right? Then you can also simulate scenarios. And this simulation process is one of the things I love, especially if you are working on at the design phase. You want to condition, technically put your choice or decision or the alternatives in a controlled environment and see the behavior or the performance even before you decide. There are some decisions you need to make in that in this regard. You need to see how or what the outcome will be, just for an inclination, just for you to have an experience, just for you to prepare your mind, right? So simulation scenarios are very, very important. And we do this also even in design. You want to simulate to see the impact and the effect of your design choices or your design outcome before you now begin to build. If a house is going to collapse, you will have seen it. If you have carried out a simulation, if a house is going to be affected and impacted, the integrity is going to be impacted by natural disaster, by hurricane, by tsunami, or whatever, you will have seen it, within that simulated scenario, which is within a controlled environment, which will now determine whether you still want to proceed, or right from design phase, before you make your choice and move into implementation, you want to improve on the quality of the choice or decision you want to make. Then the fourth one is for you to set clear goals. This is part of what you have been taught and we've discussed prior to us moving deeply into this session. So you need to revise that and ensure that your goals, or whatever it is that you want to base your decision on, is focused on purpose and it has a long-term objective, not just a short-term objective. So when you're solving a problem, you don't look at the short term, you look at the long-term impact, and that will help you to make quality decision at the end of the day. You don't make transient, you look at, because when you make temporary decision for a permanent cause, at the end of the day, it's going to have a permanent impact in the long run. So you have to be very careful. So you don't, because you are going through difficulty, because you are hard pressed, because you are under duress, don't make a lasting or a permanent decision in such situation, right? Because you need to go through the 7 processes before you emerge with your decision. So sometimes you give it the test of time, you calm down, you take a breath, you get your thinking faculty right, and probably even have access to data for it. So these are part of what clear goals will do to help you align with your purpose. Then the fifth one is for you to practice some form of decisiveness. And this one talks about you being confidence. You have to get your confidence. You have to ensure that you have your groove on, right? That's what decisiveness talks about. You have to be, I mean, once you understand your purpose, why people are not decisive is because they struggle with understanding of their purpose. Once you know your purpose, like I told you, is not going to shift. It's not a shifting game. It's not a shifting course. It's fixed. And that is what you are aiming, you are pursuing. So you don't have different destination. You know your destination. That will enable you to be fixed, and focused. Yeah, that's the right word I'm using. So decisiveness speak generally around focus. You have to be focused on exactly what you are aiming to achieve, and that is when you can now make informed decision. And finally, you are going to look at the process of consistency. Consistency is also a very great tool that you can use, which most cases are not even empirical, but they are just a force of nature. And consistency is a force of nature, right? The more you practice, the more you do something repeatedly, even if you're not getting it correctly in the first instance. And of course, this should be on a short term. You make a wrong decision first time, you learn through it, you make a better decision next time, you learn through it, and then you make the best decision. There are some people that are like that you have to go through that process in order for you to be able to, come to a conclusion where you make the right decision. So I'm going to stop here because of time and open the conversation for question and also for reflection. And maybe we'll put this against how you have been taking decision, whether you've been going through this process, whether you even understand this process, and how you need to engage meaningfully for you to be able to achieve good results in life. So any question? Any question? Because I'm going to give you 2 assignments to work on using these strategy, considering the pitfalls, right? I'm going to give you 2 assignments. We would have discussed it here, but because of time, I'll give them as assignment for you. 2 scenarios I'm going to paint for you, which I would like you to just examine and see how you're going to solve the problem. So any question? Any question?
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
All right. Okay, I joined the class that I was struggling with the link. And I've been having a bit of issues with my PHCN connection since
Sorry about
Thursday. That
that.
is why I've not been consistent with class. But we are getting into
Sorry about that. So that means you have not been receiving the email communication, because I noticed one of my previous email bounced back.
Oh, okay. Okay. I will check through.
Yeah,
All
please
right.
check your email. And I will also advise that we should always check our emails.
All right, sir.
Yeah.
All right, sir. So my question boils down to yesterday we had leadership. We spoke on leadership. I didn't join classes, but I think I went through the video. We talked about
Okay.
leadership, and now we are talking about team management, so
Decision
to
making.
say. I don't know.
Decision making.
Decision making. All right. Now,
Yes.
in leadership, sometimes like we discuss this is leading people to achieve a common goal. And I
Yes.
think as a leader, to do a lot of decision making. You do a lot of decision making. Now you mentioned part of the seven steps of making decision now has not being opinionated, like and that is just the truth. But in a situation where you have to make decision as a leader and maybe because of the time frame, you have to make that decision. How do I balance my own opinion in terms of that is what we will do so that we don't waste time. Then this particular point in decision making that says I should not be opinionated. How do I balance time, the time required to make that decision and trying to get people's opinion to sample people's opinion to get the best decision at that particular point. But is it good? Maybe sometimes to also say you can make decision based on your opinion for in that same space of leadership. I just want to know how to balance that.
Okay, good question. Yes. So that's why um life in itself is made in different or is being exhibited in different scenarios, right? So what I've just explained to you are principles and strategies, regardless of what scenario at plays or what scenario you find yourself in as a leader. You can make use of these processes, you can make use of these strategies, okay? Going through the steps. So the scenario you just painted now, oh, there's an emergency that require you to make an immediate decision. How do you go through that process? Are you going to authoritatively use authoritative leadership style, okay, by using veto power, or you are going to consult using the consultative approach, right? By taking referendum or taking collective decision, blah, 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 and all of that. Or, so the first thing is number one, you need to understand the problem. So let's not shy away from the steps. No matter how urgent, you also don't want to, like I mentioned, you don't want to make a permanent decision, right? You don't want to make a permanent decision temporarily because of you're under duress. Sometimes, let me give you a good scenario. I don't want to actually play a scenario, but let me use another scenario to counter and then be able to drive home this point. Imagine you want to sign a legal document, right? Maybe not even let's not even go to legal because someone would naturally logically want to be afraid because just imagine you want to open a bank account, right? How many of us usually go through every line? Some bank accounts opening form has several information. How many of us usually go there before we append our signature? A lot of times we make conclusive judgment like, oh, maybe his bank account have filled several forms and all of that, not knowing that sometimes some policies might have changed, some underlining clauses might be attached and associated to some of these things and all of that. So in such case, maybe you are even waiting for your money to be transferred into your account at that moment. And like, it's until when you fill this form or sign this thing, blah, 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 and all of that. Do you know that some people have actually, under that condition, within that same scenario, have signed and have ended up in jail? I mean, this is not even a hearsay. This is a friend has been involved in this kind of situation. That it was God that helped him. He did a reference for someone like that. It was God that helped him. And he did not read any of the clauses or anything. Only for the person that did the reference form to be involved in a fraud, that they had to now dig out the form of how he opened the account and discover that they had to just go and, pick up, because they couldn't, the person has gone there, so they had to look for the people that did the reference and all of that. And that's how they got hold of him, and they had to be telling him, oh, but this clause was there. Sorry, I didn't read it. This was there because the guy wanted to open the account right there, and all of that. So this is just a subtle scenario. It can happen at the larger scale. Maybe as a governor of a state, you need to sign, an agreement or sign a form, and right there, the opportunity is waiting, and they're even telling you, oh, if you don't close out this thing today, sorry, the opportunity will walk away and all of that. What do you do in that scenario? Or is even life-threatening? Life-threatening. I told you about the war that is about to start too, and the president is meant to press a code to detonate. So how are you going to get yourself in such a way that you don't, take, you don't just make a wrong decision. You have to remember the step. The first thing is, did you know what the problem is all about? Do you have a full grip? Have you been debriefed on what the problem is? So you want to have an understanding of what the problem is. After all, you are going to be held responsible for your decision because you are the leader. No matter who advised you, no matter which expert informed you, you are the leader. You are the one making the decision. It's your decision. They are only giving you support or whatever it is. Even your emotion is only supporting you. But you are the decision owner, right? So you need to understand, either by logic or by expert judgment or by any means of information, something must help you to understand and identify what the problem is here. Sometimes you have to even do due diligence in getting to the root cause by doing root cause analysis. Then the other thing is, if you are still not convinced, do you need to gather data? And when I'm talking about data gathering, it can even be through brainstorming. It can be through interview, through survey. You can do all these things in a few minutes, right? The key stakeholders, you can gather them in an impromptu meeting. Okay, you call for an impromptu meeting, and from there you brainstorm, you collect whatever information you want to collect. So you know the right questions to ask. See where emotional intelligence comes in. Knowing the right questions to ask, when to ask, how to ask. So you gather your information and then you are informed. You know what you're looking for. In fact, mere speaking for 5 minutes, you know exactly what you need, and then you can call up the meeting like, okay, thank you, I've gotten my information, right? So never, it's a basic rule in leadership, it's a basic principle. Even if it's at the point of a gun over your head, never make a permanent decision. Never make a permanent decision within a temporary situation, because no situation lasts forever. There will always be a recess. There will always be a punctuated time a punctuated duration in time, which will enable you for critical thinking and all of that. Then the other thing is now for you to look at, you've understood the problem, you've gotten the data, perhaps you are not even convinced about the data, blah, 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 and all of that. Then you have to now use your deep sense. This can be intuitive. When you're talking about deep sense, this can be intuitive, this can be revelation, this can be you just even looking holistically about the entire scenario. Maybe it's formed a consistency, right? You can look at all these patterns, or maybe there is a past historical data. You can look at all these things, but never get yourself entangled into being boxed to like, no, 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 you must do it. No. Such situation, you will never make a right decision. And that's what many leaders have found themselves entangled with. So there will always be a need for you to process every decision you want to make before you make it. Never. It's a rule in effective leadership. Never make a decision without you knowing what you are deciding on in terms of understanding the problem, and two, validating and verifying what the solution you are profiling is. Because every decision you are making is a solution that is meant to solve the problem, albeit the outcome will make or mar, the impact that is going to have on people. I don't know if this helps.
It does, sir.
Does this?
It does. Yeah, it does. Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Okay, good. So please, several scenario, different approach that you can use this same strategy or these steps in order to solve the problem. But the basic rule is never rush into making any decision, even at the gunpoint. Never, because it will never be a good decision. It will never be a good decision with good outcome. It will always be a temporary solution. I mean, a temporary solution that may result into a bigger problem. And don't forget, I told you every problem inherent in every solution are myriads of problems. So the best solution is the one that has the least problem inherent in it. The least problem. You see all these inventions, even technology, everything they have problems they bring about. But the best one is the one that has the least problem when you have comparative analysis of them. You see AI, you see what AI is causing, everybody is afraid and all of that. But where are the other variants of AI? You know, you see phones and all of that. Some people will tell you the the microwave coming out of using phone can cause fire, can cause all this, blah blah blah, and all of that. But the question is, are we still not going to be using phone? But there are some phones that now have protection. That's why sometimes you use what's it called now? You use phone pouch and all of that. So I mean, there are several. So when you are now making decision, I still want to go in this direction, but these are the ways by which I want to mitigate the impact of the risk that will happen. So that means that you have had a judgment, informed decision is what we now call that. So you know what you are going into and you are prepared. Any other question, contribution? Any other question, contribution? As simple as people deciding on what job they want to do. And I need to quickly spell this out because a lot of times, I mean, we are entangled in the fact that we are attracted to good pay. Oh, they are paying me 1 million naira compared to someone that wants to pay me 100,000, right? Whereas the 1 million naira job is not going to give you fulfillment. It's not going to even push you in the direction of achieving your purpose and goals. Rather, it's going to hinder you and make it impossible. Hinder, or at best, it might just be a limitation. Maybe you're supposed to have every day 1 hour for you to move towards achieving your goal, but now it limits it to 1 minute. I mean, that is highly detrimental, meaning that it's going to take you longer time for you to arrive at your destination. So you have to work in that organization for 20 years in order for you to. Whereas if you have worked in a place where they are paying you 100,000, see the wide gap, 900,000 naira, but you don't want to. They call it alternative costs in problem solving. So you want to look at the cost of selecting a particular solution against the alternatives, right? So does the cost outweigh the benefits? And you can also derive this from cost benefit analysis method too. So these are all the things you are going to do if you are making even the simplest form of decision for your own life. Someone you want to marry, this is the same way you have to look at it, right? You want to decide on where you're going to stay in terms of your location, you have to analyze it in this same manner. Okay, you want to jackpot, you want to travel abroad, or you want to even study, do further studies, or those of you that are setting goals that you want to take a course to study. These are all the same way you're going to take decision. Look at the cost benefit analysis, you look at how it aligns with your goals, you look at the impact it's going to have, how much time you need to devote, are you willing to do the sacrifice, you are sacrificing so these are all the ways by which you make those decisions and you determine whether it's going to be good and the outcome is going to be impactful. Does that help? We need to wrap up now. Any question?
Yes, what you just said is part of what
Okay.
I want to ask. When you talked
Okay.
about decision making and deciding the job that you want to take. So
Yeah.
I wanted to ask in a case where, for example, you're a team, there are different people with different purposes. It's similar to the answer you gave
Mhm.
earlier, but um, like what you said, marrying your purpose with that of the company, so you're not out of yourself. You're not um, dying gradually, but fulfilling the purposes of someone else. So how I think from what you just said, the best thing is not to even be in that kind of scenario at all before you say yes to that kind of. job, you should be able to marry your purpose with that, with what the job is offering. So I think you've answered my question.
Okay. And to also buttress it, you know, the job you are picking, whatever it is, as long as it's job opportunity you are seizing, you have seen, you see, you seek, and then you want to seize. So you are now being interviewed. Part of what, because you will be opportune to also ask questions, right? Interview is not just one way. Otherwise, it's not effective communication. They will ask you questions, but you also be opportune to ask questions. Part of what you should also interrogate or find out is how the strategic objective of that organization aligns with your own purpose. How is it going to align with your, so that means you must have understood your own purpose and then know how it's going to be mutually beneficial. You are going to be spending your time, you are going to be spending your resources, you are going to be spending, you are bringing value into the organization. So how is the organization also going to give you value? And that value is not only going to be monetary. That's why I told you, even if they are going to offer you so much money and you're not seeing the connect with your purpose, rather it's going to become a limitation. It's going to become an hindrance in your fulfillment. And you just say, oh no, I just want to be there temporarily. Hey, you are making a permanent decision, because that period you're going to be there temporarily could have scaled you and enabled you to have what we call decision velocity, for you to be able to decide, and like you overtake and outspeed yourself in life. But hey, that might become something that will throw you backwards to like maybe even a primitive time when you are still very young, and then you are just trying to, so you just need to be very, very careful. And this thing is holistic. You don't look at your temporary problems, maybe because you need to pay for this, pay for that, and all these things are temporary. I'm not saying you should not look for jobs that is going to take care of your, uh, um, an income that will take care of all your expenses and all of that. But you need to sit down and think about it. Maybe there are certain areas you need to compromise on your, on what you want. For instance, if the reason why you want to go and pick job in a place that is not going to align with your purpose because you want to stay in a 2-bed, 3-bed, hey, and you're not married, why can't you scale down to 1 bed and pick up a job that will fulfill purpose, help you to even start building a career in the direction of your purpose, and then from there scale up. So these are some of the things that you just need to intuitively, apply wisdom on and decide.
Okay, so another thing I would like to know is, in a case where you're after, at the point of the interview, most times the work ethic is not shown. Everyone is trying to portray a good a good show, both the employer and the employee. So, but then when you get into the system, it's choking you, it's toxic. What do you do in cases like that? Because you already made a decision and maybe you have a commitment, maybe you have something that you've already signed that you have this number of months to be there before you're able to resign or move into something else.
Okay, so like I said, is for you to know the steps. There is no two ways about it. You follow the steps because it's a principle. You don't invent your own way of doing things. And that's what many of us do at times. You just want a shortcut. Hey, there is no shortcut. There is no shortcut. The process is know the problem, right? Before you decide at all, know the problem. And if you think you don't have good grasp on the knowledge about identifying the problem, you need data. So why will you go into an interview? Someone tells you, oh, you are coming from, they might even tell you, no, 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 interview is happening within 24 hours. It's good, but make sure you take time. If you know you are not prepared, you can ease on your own terms. Hey, they're not doing you a favor, even though you might have been jobless for years. They're not doing you a favor. It's because you have a value. That's why they want to employ you. So it's a win-win. So don't make yourself, don't be desperate because you are seeking for opportunity. No, don't be desperate. If you know you don't have a full grip on the information of that organization, you should search, you should collect data, inquire. You find out before you go in there. So you know what, for instance, you go to their website. If you don't have websites, look online. They must have been published in a newspaper. Thank God we have ChatGPT now. Go there, go and search. Go to AI, go and tell AI, interrogate an AI, use Copilot, you use DeepSeek, all these channels, or you ask friends around, oh, I have an opportunity with this company. I mean, just last 2 weeks, I think I mentioned someone who is now transiting and is relocating abroad and all of that. He got a job and he was just confused, blah, blah, blah. And he felt, oh, the easy route for him in understanding the problem is for him to speak to me because he feels I'm a subject matter expert in that field. And guess what? He had an interview in less than 5 days. Just because we discussed in less than 30 minutes, was able to have, in fact, if he has been searching online, he wouldn't have been able to get the kind of information I gave him in just 30 minutes. He wouldn't have been able to get the information in one day online. So you can be creative. That's why I talked about emotional intelligence. You can be creative about the way you go about sourcing for information and data. So when I'm saying data collection and all of that, I'm not necessarily saying that you have to sit down and start administering questionnaire. It might just be through interview. It might be through conversation with friends and all you need is you need information in order for you to be able to make informed decision. That's all. But never go into an interview without you having info, because it's like you don't have any card to play. So you look vulnerable, extremely vulnerable, and then you are going to be the one at the receiving end, right? So when you have done your research, you will have questions. In fact, you will have taken note of the question you want to ask them. You want to ask them, how consistent are you guys going to be paying salary? Or what happens in the case where you can't pay me salary a month? So how do I fend? You understand? So all these things can now be spelled out in agreements, in your clauses. Okay, what happens? I mean, you can be able to engage and they will respect you because they know that you have done your due diligence. Finally, just I think a few weeks ago, I had an opportunity, a company that I've been consulting for, and they feel that, oh, my value is extremely impeccable. And they feel, oh, they want to upgrade me. Well, in their own sense, I don't see it as upgrade. I see it as downgrade. And again, see what you need to understand when it comes to you knowing your value. They want to, in their own terms, they want to upgrade me by making me a full staff so that I come on board on the management team. In fact, with so many cloudy, rosy things, oh, they're going to give me private car, they'll give me private this, that. I mean, it was just so, initially I was like, this thing is a very easy answer for me. It's just a no. But again, emotional intelligence, you need to allow people to express themselves, right? So I would have been extremely wrong for me to just say no. Do you know that it took me about 2 weeks before I eventually told, the director my decision, which is exactly no. I mean, I've known the no from the very first day when he started talking about it. I knew that I'm not going to pick up this offer. I rather prefer to even walk away from the consultancy than for me to come and, I mean, something I abandoned over 10 years ago, right? And it's not like you're even inviting me to come and buy shares and be a director in the organization. You just want to, use me in another level, in another form, and all of that. And I look at it, you can't even give me any terms. How much do you want to pay me? Commensurate to what at that level I will have to be off. So all of this, so you need to holistically understand the problem. So I knew the problem, right? And I know that there is no way we can have an agreement when it comes to making that decision. And my decision is very simple, is no. I know we can never. And it got to a point, I think after a week, after discussion, he will keep coming back. Have you decided now? I'm still thinking about it. Okay, so let me know. So it kept coming on a note. It's not like, okay, I mean, I'm not going to be hungry if you don't, blah, blah, blah. I said, yeah, I know, but you just need to give me time, right? No pressure. And by the time I finally decided, he respected my decision. And we're still good at it. I'm still consulting on. So you need to know your worth. You need to know your value system. All of these things, that's why I said it's a build-up. Everything we've discussed up to this point, they must have been in place in you before you can really exercise making right decision. Imagine if we have talked about decision making first day, it won't make any sense. If you have not talked about self-awareness, if you have not talked about how you can set goals, if you have not spoken about emotional intelligence, if you have not talked about what leadership is, and we just jump into decision making, it won't make any sense. So just rewind to or replay to everything we've discussed and bring it to bear. And that's how you can now begin to see how you can make good decisions. We're going to stop here. Please feel free. We can always have other conversation in the WhatsApp group. If you have any question, as usual, drop it there. or you can send a mail to me. I'll take time, go through, reply you, and then we'll be good. Okay. So we'll stop here and we'll continue the next session. And we'll move into the fourth. Sorry, someone is speaking. Okay. So we are going to